Hello everyone. Today we are going to start a new journey on GTNH New Horizons. As we spawn, we are given a book to guide us in our adventure. But since we are experienced, we are going to do things slightly differently. Thus we shall leave this book lying here for the next lucky adventurer. And so our journey shall begin. The first thing we will need is food. Luckily, there are some bushes containing edible stuff all around the place. We can either break these bushes to get some food or carefully collect them for future cultivation. The next thing we want to worry about is the night. If we do not want to spend it fighting nightmare monsters, we need a proper bed. And the worst part of making a bed is finding some sheep. This took quite a lot of time, but we managed to get 6 pieces of wool before night. The last thing we need is some wood, so we manually punch it out of 3s. And while that would be enough raw materials for making the bed, we also have to gather some flint for a crafting table. And with that, we are now ready to assemble our bed. And this bed is going to require quite a lot of wood. So much that, by the time we finish gathering it, it's already time to sleep. On the second day, we shall collect our stuff and start looking for a place where we can settle. After a couple of days of exploration, we decide to set our base on a riverside, close to an oil sprout, a forest and a clay canyon. Now that we have a starting point, we can open our virtual guidebook and start following its suggestions. And thus we have our first flint tools. Next we shall have a place where we can store all the stuff we gathered so far, so we make some chests. Since we are now settling, we shall have a farm island. We can also plant some of the bushes we gathered earlier on. These will slowly spread out and give us a high variety of foods. Going back to our quests, we shall now gather some cobblestone. However, we are not gathering it in random places. We are going to gather it while we do some mineral prospecting shafts. Because ores here spawn in veins that also spawn in a grid. And after some other small tasks, we finally align our progression with the quests. Which means that we are now ready to finally enter the Stone Age. Such age is going to require a lot of material gathering, such as stone. Then we make our second tool, a mortar. We can use that to get flint at a better ratio. We can also use it to turn some clay into dust and then mold that dust into a bucket. Or to shred some logs. Next, we shall make some paper by soaking the wood pulp with water. And with that, we can finally upgrade our tools to the Thinker's version and throw away the old ones. Moving on, we shall now work towards making some bricks. So we cut a wood frame and then start molding sand and clay. We use these for making a coke oven, which we shall place where we need it, close to our furnaces. Then we trade our first 4 pieces of charcoal for a bucket, so that we can use the byproduct creosote to power our furnaces. And now it is time to go gather some stone to trade it for a better pickaxe. Thus, we shall mine a couple more prospecting holes. Once we collected enough stone, we can trade it for a pickaxe upgrade. And with that, we can now gather a lot of raw minerals. Then, once we have stocked up enough iron, we can start crafting our first tools. With those, we have now unlocked a variety of improvements for our roofless base, none of which is going to give us a shelter. So we shall go do some more mining to stock up some building materials. Once we have polished some of the stone we mined, we can start laying down the paving of our new home. And here you can see the finished result. Moving on, we can start working on the next objective, bronze. We can make it by mixing up some copper and tin dusts. And this is the material we are going to use for all of the steam age machinery. However, before getting into that, we should do some more exploration. And all we found in that area was a bunch of books and some bricks. Moving on, our next objective is to get some steam. But, before doing all of these tasks, we should also get a new room where we can place the start of our industry. Once we have made a little expansion with the stone we had left, we can craft our first small coal boiler. and all of these fireworks are probably excessive for such a small achievement. Also, before we proceed into heating that boiler up, we should get a reliable source of water. To do that, we have planted a rubber tree farm that will also be useful later on. Once we use our freshly collected resin to make a water tank, we can start talking about their real dilemma: what's the fanciest places for our tank? And I think that we can momentarily place it in this corner. And it turns out that this was not a good place. Just look at how slowly the water is building up. But, just by moving it by a couple of blocks, the water production goes almost 10 times faster. Now that we have water, we can pipe it to our boiler to start producing steam. And while it heats up, we can work on our first steam machine, an alloy smelter. And our first alloy is going to be the one overhyped and overrated by the guidebook: red alloy. And right now its only usage is pistons. And the first thing I would like to do with these is a macerator to double our ores. However, due to the diamond requirement, its quest is locked by the bronze tools quest. Since that sounds annoying, we shall skip that and make an ore finder wand. Then, we locate some coal and insert it into our material detector. Now we go take a walk, until our newly acquired 6th sense for coal doesn't warn us. We verify that this is the calcified coal we need, and then we start digging towards it. And we will be greeted by small diamond deposits while on our way to the bigger vein. If you are lucky, you can get 4 diamonds out of just one of these small ores, but I had no luck. After digging all the way to the big ores, we find out that our pick can't mine these. But it is no time to panic yet. We can trade some of the coins we got from the quests for a diamond ore that we should have used to locate that vein. Then we cook it to get a diamond, which we can add to our pickaxe to increase its mining level. And it turns out that this didn't work. Now we can panic. And, as you probably know, the reason why we panic is that now we have to make a smeltery without a macerator. But that turned out not to be a big deal too. We can actually use the stained clay we find on canyons and mountains even with a mortar. The real annoying part is usually the part where we have to do craftings using buckets. Doing 3 stacks of grout that way would be daunting. To avoid having to do this that way, we can make a compressor and use that for making a forestry work table. With that, making bucket craftings will be way easier. And after some more work, we have finally completed our smeltery. To make it work, we need some lava. However, carrying a lava bucket with our bare hands is going to hurt us. To avoid getting hurt, we need a pair of gloves. And freshly made ones feel weird when firstly worn. Or maybe, since these are not working properly, the reason why they felt weird is that we are wearing these in the wrong way. And now we can finally power our smeltery. The first thing we shall smelt is some stone to finish up our building. We are going to use dense plates to speed up the process. Now that we have a working smeltery, we quickly make some upgrades for our tools, thus also completing the quests that gates the macerator. However, before this pick can mine diamonds, we have to warm it up by digging some other stuff. And now we can finally collect some diamonds, which we use for making our first ore doubling machine, a macerator. Then we make our next machine, a forge hammer. This machine can make plates more efficiently. We get 50% more plates than by using a crafting table. But since it uses a lot of power, we are using it just for the rare materials, such as silver. And what we are crafting with that silver is our first solar boiler, which we shall place under the sun to get some free steam without having to manage any fuel. And now, while our macerator is slowly but perpetually working, we can go do some mining. And after a lot of digging, we have all the materials for our next milestone, a bricked blast furnace, which took more than half an hour to make 8 ingots of steel. and with these we can unlock all sorts of quality of life improvements. The first one we shall use is alumite, which is an alloy of steel, aluminium and obsidian. To get the obsidian we could upgrade our pick to steel, but that would require us to also sharpen it up. Or we can use experience. That is expensive, so we use our first ingot to make a pickaxe that can mine obsidian without further process. Now we can go gather some more obsidian with our upgraded pick. We can use that for making enough alumite to finally obtain a tool forge. And the first tool we shall forge is a lumber axe. With this tool we can now gather wood way faster and finally stock up it. Next we make a hammer and an excavator, so that we can go mine more efficiently. And of course, we need a backpack where we can store all of these tools and materials. But now the issue is that our macerator can't keep up processing all of that stuff. And thus we shall craft a bigger, multi-block one. But this bad boy seems to be too big to fit in our machine room, so we shall make some more space. And once we have made a room expansion, we can build our first multi-block machine. Once enough steam is stocked up in its power intake, we can turn it on and see that this machine works 20 times faster than its smaller version. The issue is that it will also use up way more power. To fix that we shall have a high pressure boiler. And the reason why we have chose this kind of boiler is only that we got it for free from a loot bag. Next we shall add some hopper and chests, so that we can better automate our workshop. Now we can feed a lot of material to our machines and let them process while we upgrade our hammer and then go take some more minerals. When we come back, we found out that our workshop need one more improvement, better pipes and a buffer. After doing that, we can upgrade our workshop with a pinch of steel. Which also applies to our passive power generation, which has now been moved where it belongs, on the roof. Now, if we take a peek further into our future progression, we will notice that we are going to need a lot of steel. And thus, we shall make a second bricked blast furnace. And we can make it share the walls with the older one to cheap out on building materials. But if we truly want to go fast, 2 blast furnaces won't be enough, we will need at least 4. And 4 furnaces will need 4 times more coal. We could make an array of coke ovens or go mine some coal deposits, but I think that for our needs, the best way is to make a charcoal pile. This machine will convert a whole room of logs into charcoal. The only downside is that we have to manually place the logs and dig the charcoal. And to make the steel making process need less care, we can compress the charcoal into blocks, which will make 10 ingots in about 1 hour. While our steel cooks, we can go on with our quests. Thus we make a nether portal, and here pitching a fire is kinda hard. Once we reach the destination, we give a peek around. Then we remember we forgot to bring food and some tools that we need, so we go back. After the quick break, we go back to our mission, which is locating a sulfur vein. To do so, we collect some from one of the clouds and then use it inside an ore finder wand to find a vein of it. We swiftly gather just enough of it to complete the mission and then we run back home. And while our sulfur is being grinded down into dust, we shall collect some raw resin from our rubber 3 farm. We extract some raw rubber out of the resin and then use an alloy smelter to slowly vulcanize rubber at a low yield. Then we melt down again this rubber to cover some cables which we previously manually cut out of metal sheets with a scissor. And with these we can make our first motor. Then we make some resistors and some vacuum tubes, which we assemble into our first electronic circuit. This is electronic but we have no electricity, so we are going to use it to make our first generator, a steam turbine. And thus we have unlocked the first tier, LV. And this is going to have quite a lot of tasks to do, which we are going to see in the next episode. Bye bye.